Let's welcome our audience. Welcome to the Ready Set Gemini podcast. I am your host, Dan Mora.
Hey, everybody. I'm your co-host, Frank Smithson.
Frank, how are you today?
Doing good. I heard you have some words of wisdom for us this morning.
So at Gemini here, we have core values.
Mm-hmm.
One of them being integrity. And I think that there is a misnomer about how integrity is defined. And so I try to explain this out to staff, right? I think there's three levels. The first level is what most people think of integrity being honesty. Mm-hmm. So if I ask you a question, you're going to answer the question honestly, and that would be a form of integrity. The second that I like to talk about is transparency. So it's not just if I ask you a question, you're going to tell me, you're going to answer it honestly. Mm-hmm. It's you're going to be more forward, more transparent about whatever topic it is that I'm talking about.
Gotcha.
The third one, which is what I think is the most important, we have a purpose on this earth at some point, or purposes or things that we feel like we are called to be and do. And the third level of or a description of integrity is wholeness. And so my word of wisdom is when you have integrity, honesty, transparency, and then wholeness, you're able to serve your purposes. And I like to illustrate this with usually using boats or planes. And so a boat has a purpose. What's its purpose, Frank?
To float on the water, move things around.
If it doesn't float, it can't move anything around. So its first purpose, its primary purpose is to float.
Sure.
The only way it floats is if it has integrity.
Gotcha.
That's my words of wisdom.
I like it. I appreciate that. All right, let's move on to some headlines.
Yep.
So these headlines are from 410. The first one is from March 22nd. WCAB rescinds their emergency rules. So March 22nd rescinded all remaining emergency orders, once again requiring witness signatures on compromise and release agreements, and no longer accepting filings via fax or email. And the WCAB walkthrough hours reinstated.
Yeah. So I'm assuming our audience out there, the applicant attorneys, this is a change for them that now they've been living with for a couple of weeks, but maybe you haven't filed, maybe you're an applicant attorney and you haven't filed a new case in a couple of weeks. So this is a good reminder that witness signatures are required on CNRs and filings are no longer accepted via fax, email.
That's a little sad one. I don't understand why they want to go backwards with tech. Like, keep the email at least.
I wonder if though, yeah.
Right.
You assume they're not using JetFile.
Sure.
If they're using fax or email, they're not using JetFile.
Yeah. And then now they got to like walk things in with paper. Sorry, guys. Get it together. A little old school.
Yeah.
JetFile.
Sorry to giggle a little bit.
JetFile.
Yeah, JetFile. Come on.
Or Eames file, right? Next up.
Second headline here, on March 8th, Joe Capurro and was it this first name Raza, last name? Oh shoot! Now I got the case. There was two WCB commissioners that were confirmed on March 8th, Joe Capurro and Mr. Razzo. So great, but at the confirmation hearing, there's this issue going on at WCB where issues are not being decided within 60 days. So there's a provision that requires them to act within 60 days. And Mr. Capurro, he made that clear that the law requires that the WCB act within 60 days, not resolve issues within 60 days. Mm-hmm. He did say that a number of cases at the board are at the board longer than they should reasonably expect them to be there. And for many cases, it's simply not possible for the WCAB to issue a decision within the 60-day time frame. So some other news right there.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
And this last one, the federal EPA tightens air emissions and workers' protections to reduce exposure to ethylene oxide, a colorless gas used to sterilize medical supplies and some food products. And it's been linked to cancer and some other serious health conditions. And what really struck me is this quote right here. Ethylene oxide is used widely to eliminate E. coli and other bacterial and medical supplies, and to kill potentially dangerous microbes lurking in spices, dried vegetables, walnuts, and some other food products. That just goes to show you have no idea. Like, you think you grab a walnut, it's just a walnut. It's got this stuff that's going to like cause cancer on it. A little rough.
Yeah, is the ethanol oxide better for you than the dangerous microbes? The lurking dangerous microbes.
I got some problems with these microbes things. I raise my own chickens. I don't spray them with bleach. I set them on the counter. They can last for months. All of my garden vegetables, I've never got E. coli or salmonella. I don't know how that stuff's getting on there in the first place. A little freaky.
Who sells ethylene oxide?
I don't know.
Hint, hint.
All right.
So our main story, mass layoffs. So,
in the tech sector specifically, right?
Yeah,
mostly.
Interesting. The tech sector is hurting, or these numbers just jump out to you. It's kind of nuts. So I have an article here from TechCrunch.com, and total jobs that were lost since the first of the year, and these are mostly tech jobs. What's the number there?
January 84,714, February 36,491, March 37,109.
And let me just go down this list because these are all names that you guys should know.
I think it'd be kind of cool to do that.
Vimeo 11%, Salesforce 7,000 jobs, Amazon 18,000 and in January, and then another 9,000 I think in March.
I'm still getting my deliveries on time. I don't know what they're doing.
Oh man, Coinbase 950 layoffs that's a 20% reduction. DirecTV 10%, Microsoft 10,000 jobs. That's and then another 600. Alphabet 12,000 jobs. That's 6% of their workforce.
Alphabet is a Google parent company, right?
Spotify 600 jobs. That's 6% reduction. PayPal 2,000 jobs, 7% reduction. Groupon 500 jobs. Rivian 6%. Pinterest 150 jobs, Dell 6,650 jobs, 5%, Zoom 1,300 jobs at 15%, Yahoo 1,600 jobs at 20%, GitHub 300 jobs at 10%, Evernote 129, Twitter 200, SiriusXM 475, Atlassian 500 at 5%, Meta 10,000 jobs, Disney 7,000 jobs, Lucid, 1,300 jobs. That's an 18% reduction. Indeed, 2,200 jobs at 15%. Accenture, 19,000 jobs at 2.5%.
And this is definitely impacting the United States, probably California relatively heavy, but this is, we believe this is like worldwide numbers.
That's, international. That's what we believe.
One thing that I find really interesting is why we have difficulty hiring like software engineers. Like, it seems like with all of these layoffs, there would be some kind of tangible impact, but I'm not feeling it. I'm not seeing it.
Yeah, we're actively recruiting for tech jobs right now.
And it's difficult.
Yeah.
We're looking for a data analyst. It's been really difficult to find one. We're looking for a senior software engineer. It's been difficult to find one. We're looking for a UI UX designer. It's been difficult to find one. One theory that I've heard is that a lot of these layoffs come with some type of severance, right? And so they have all this cash and they're like, oh, let's go take a vacation. So there's like this pile of unemployed people that are just chilling for a little bit, and maybe they'll come back around and be hurting to find a job. That being said, if you look at like the data, Dan, you and I were looking at some graph produced by the government where unemployment is still low. It's like 3.5%, right?
Yeah. And maybe you can't, maybe to your theory, you can't apply for unemployment until that money's gone to some degree.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good questions. I wonder how this is impacting the workers' comp world, right? Especially here in California. A lot of these companies, have big business here. So if those layoffs are hitting, do we have white collar type attorneys out there that are,
I'm sure,
seeing the impact?
Yeah, no, I'm sure we do. I'm very interested to hear what people are hearing and seeing. This reminds me, though, I was really concerned and just anticipating that COVID was going to escalate the number of injuries, basically from work from home, ergonomics, and or just trip and fall type of things that happen at work. And I asked and didn't hear much of any, percolation of these types of injuries. So I'm wondering, I'm interested to see how this plays through the system,
Interesting. It seems like if you were working from home, I mean, I can understand like the ergonomic setup. If you didn't have an office before, how did you set it up properly? But you have a lot of opportunity to take breaks and get up, get your own coffee, and even sit on your couch, get some little mental relaxation while you're working remote.
That could explain why there wasn't.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just making assumptions, right? That's all
But
we
you
can do at this
wonder
point.
if all of these tech jobs, if they were working from home, now all of a sudden they don't have a job. Are they going to be claiming injury from working from home?
Yeah, that's a possibility too. I kind of think COVID could be one of the reasons why this is actually happening, because during COVID, we saw like a mass exodus from your traditional work inside of a building going to pure remote, and like Zoom, for example, 1,300 jobs. Who didn't use Zoom during COVID? So
Sure.
they just saw a huge boom, and then you take that and you invest in it. And then all of a sudden, oh, wait a second, a lot of people are going back into work. They're starting to use Zoom a little less. We kind of, maybe hired a little bit too many people. So we're now normalizing. And you can think the same for Salesforce, even Amazon. Like people weren't going to stores, and now they're back out. There's still traffic all over the place, even here in Lincoln, going down to the Galleria Mall.
Yeah, it's busy.
When COVID was happening, you could drive on the freeway, pick any lane you wanted. You could just swerve across the lane. There was nobody on the streets. It was crazy.
Yeah. So this article states, it says the reasoning behind these workforce reductions follows a common script, citing the macroeconomic environment and the need to find discipline on a tumultuous path to profitability. I kind of follow the general economic headlines, and to me, this is that follows whatever this it follows what this is saying, that there's discipline in the find discipline on a tumultuous path to profitability. Price to earnings ratios is an indicator that people look at when they're looking at stocks. And I think some time ago, I was looking at the PE, price to earnings ratio, and rewind 20 years ago when I was looking at stocks, and you would get PE ratios that were around 30, and that was inflated. 30 was an inflated. So that's the profitability of a company. At 30 times, their price is 30 times their earnings. Okay. Let's say that again.
That sounds pretty awesome.
It's only awesome as a stock price. That's it.
Sure.
But it means that company is less profitable than the next company that has a lower PE ratio. But when I looked 6 months, maybe a year ago, the PE ratios, there were some that just weren't even listed. For whatever reason, I'm on Robinhood, and there was some tech companies that you couldn't even see their PE ratio because it was so astronomical. Insane. So from my perspective, this is kind of a bubble bursting from an economic perspective. Earnings and again, path to profitability is where this is going. And these companies are all being, I think they're being proactive, number one. But number two, it's like a domino effect. You see this 6%, 7%, 10%, 15%, even 20% with Yahoo, 18% with Lucid, Indeed 15%. It's almost like, hey, my buddy, my tech buddy company, they cut, so I guess I need to cut too. So they're also, I got this quote from the article too. This is the Amazon CEO, and he's beating the drum about bringing people back to the office. I think this also has another theme where you're almost driving workers away from the company. They're discouraging, having the employees by specifically talking about bringing people into the office, which I think is kind of garbage. Like you and I and Jim and I, we went remote, and the litmus test for going remote, and I said this several times during 2020, I said, look, if we can get if productivity doesn't hurt, why would we not?
Sure. And what we're finding is people do enjoy hybrid.
Yeah.
And I think hybrid's a really good sweet spot, because people want to come in and have an opportunity to engage with others, give them that opportunity. So I think we're set up well.
We give people 100% option to work remote or come in hybrid. And again, productivity is the litmus test.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, okay, this is what he says. This is what his name's Jazzy, is the CEO of Amazon, and we looked hard at how we were working together as a team and asked our corporate employees to come back to the office at least 3 days a week beginning in May. And he commented about remote. We don't think it's the best long-term approach. So he's citing collaboration. He's citing innovation. We've become convinced that collaborating and inventing is easier and more effective when we're working together and learning from one another in person. Now,
I think that there's definitely some
truth to that.
Yeah. But 100%, if you're like forcing people to come in and then they're not actually happy, then I think that that's going to go down.
Yeah.
Right. The productivity.
The other factor is the cost of I'm sure Amazon having leased space that is sitting empty, and that could drive anybody crazy. If you have leased space, you're paying $3 a square foot. If you're in Seattle, I'm sure $3 a square foot.
It's a form of waste, right?
Yeah.
It is a form of waste. And if you're trying to really tighten and be disciplined, I could see, forcing people into that space to justify it.
You work in a highly collaborative, though, area of the business.
Oh, yeah.
And innovative.
Yeah.
And you don't ever, very, very seldom do you actually face-to-face in person with your entire team. Once a month?
No, it's always on Zoom.
Yeah.
No, my team is like mostly remote now, but we're so highly collaborative. We're constantly on Zoom, constantly on Slack. So it kind of feels like we're all together in the same space. In fact, sometimes when we do get together, it feels a little wasteful, because then we're more chitty chatty and having fun, as opposed to like really focusing on the work, just because we haven't seen each other for so long.
Right.
So it is a little interesting there. So I wonder how this is impacting work comp again. Like, I'd like to hear some comments.
Yeah.
If you're out there and you're seeing some kind of slowdown in California in the tech sector and the white collar type workers' compensation suits, it'd be interesting to know if they're happening, if there's a direct correlation between these layoffs and maybe like, does anybody feel, I'm thinking of like the people that work for us, they're kind of like this white collar tech side of things. I don't think anybody feels like there's a risk of, Gemini's different. We've always talked about being recession proof, but they're out there looking at the news and the media, and there's not a lot of chatter about this whole stuff. It kind of feels like there's not a lot of impact that's happening.
It has to, though, right?
Where? It's not impacting you. I use all these services, and I'm not seeing any impact from the quality of the services themselves. So it's almost like all of this was maybe like R&D focused, some things like that. Like, I use Spotify. I love Spotify. They just came out with the DJ thing. Have you used that yet? It's like an AI DJ that like looks past through your history, and then it talks and mentions the song names. It's like some guy who's got a pretty cool little voice, and he's your DJ, right? We use GitHub.
Yeah.
We use Atlassian, which is Jira.
I don't.
I don't see any impact.
I don't think that they would have done this if they anticipated impact to their users.
Sure.
Yeah, I think it's the impact to the employee base, or just their general unemployment. In California, from a tech job perspective.
Well, then why can't I hire engineers?
I don't know, man. I think you're right. They're all on vacation.
They're on vacation. All right.
It's spring break. You know, it's spring. People, you know, and to be honest, I'm sure that these layoffs are, I hate to say it, but just the most disposable. They didn't dispose of or didn't cut jobs from the most important things. You're sure?
Sure.
Surely. So the least skilled, relatively speaking, the least skilled folks are probably losing it, and maybe the, you know, I hate to say it too, but the management and the bloat from the top, and that happens where you just have too many cooks in the kitchen. So that's usually, from my research, the top and the bottom gets cut the most, and so you're in your 20s and you get a severance check and
having a good time.
And maybe those numbers we looked at, maybe they are lagging a little bit. I don't know.
I mean, if we're looking at this with the entire, national market, some other interesting things, the real estate since 2020, the first time ever, the median home price fell. So we're actually seeing some shrinkage in more than just like the tech sector, which is interesting. So we've been talking about potential recession for a long time. I kind of don't feel like it's going to actually happen and materialize. Everything seems like it's still happy people out there and doing their thing. I don't know.
I'm kind of on the other end. I think it's
happening.
It's happening and going to continue. It's been an odd ride post COVID, watching this economy. Been an odd
ride. Definitely been tumultuous for a while.
I think if anything, the things like this is an earnings problem. This is a responsible business problem. You're not regular businesses that aren't on the stock market. You have to be solvent. You can't, trade. Regular businesses like us, we can't trade in order to increase our value. That's not how it works.
Yeah.
But so the earnings thing is going to happen. But I think if you even just look at the real estate, the commercial real estate, I think in the office space, that hasn't hit either. We've been looking for office space now for a little way.
How is that even possible then when you have these buildings that are completely vacant? And
it's gonna hit.
Okay,
it's gonna hit, but it's gonna hurt the people that
can't fill them.
Yeah. So
interesting. Any last thoughts?
Just ask our audience. Yeah, what do you think? What are you seeing? I'm really interested to see what people are seeing out there trend wise from an injured worker perspective.
Yeah. So. If you give us some good comments, we could take that and run with it, and do some new episodes even. So like, comment, subscribe, follow, all of the above.
All of the above. Thanks, Frank.
Appreciate it.
See you next time.
Have a good one.